Before we get into this, I owe you an apology. I know what you're expecting here. You want balanced analysis, measured pros and cons, the kind of level-headed journalism that lets you decide. And I tried, genuinely I tried, but I have to be upfront with you here. This video will not be impartial, it will not be unbiased, and it will not be fair, because I am absolutely, embarrassingly, hopelessly in love with this motorcycle. I tried to find things I hate about it. I've been riding it on canyon roads. I've taken it to the track more than once. I've spent more time with it than some people spend with their therapist. And I've come back with a very short list of complaints, but more about that in a minute. So this is less of a review and more of a confession. You've been warned, so let's talk about the 2026 Honda CB650R. Let's start off with the elephant in the room, or more accurately, the flat black tarp that has been thrown over the elephant. The 2026 CB650R comes in what Honda calls matte gunpowder black metallic. And listen, I don't want to be overly dramatic here, but whoever signed off on this being the headline color for the US market needs to have a serious conversation with somebody who loves them. I mean, I first rode one of these in 2024, and that one was this gorgeous putty gray, a warm, muted, almost military surplus tone that made every line of this bike just sing. You know, like the frame, the exposed engine, the magnesium colored cases and wheels, the mechanical honesty of what Honda calls this neo-sports cafe design philosophy. I mean, it all just worked. It looked like a piece of industrial art that happened to go very fast. And then they gave us a flat black one for 2026. It's like having a beautiful painting and deciding to hang it in a cave. I mean, the two-tone flat black doesn't hide the bike's flaws. I mean, this bike barely has any flaws. It hides the bike's charm, its character. All those beautiful details that Honda engineered into this thing just kind of disappear into the void. You know, like the slanted LED headlight up front that has this 1980s Japanese animated Gundam Mech Warrior thing going on. And those air scoops flanking it, I adore them. They look like they were lifted directly from a Veritech fighter mid-transformation. If you don't know what Robotech is, just know that it means those scoops look extremely cool. And if you do know what Robotech is, then you already understand exactly why I love this bike. And then there are the exhaust headers, 4 individual pipes cascading down from the engine in a perfect waterfall, exposed, unshielded, out in the open for everyone to see. On most modern bikes, the exhaust is tucked away. It's hidden under bodywork, like something to be ashamed of. Honda just put them right there, front and center, because they're beautiful. The engineering is the aesthetic. I mean, every time I walk up to this bike, I find myself just looking at those pipes before I even reach for the key. The best stories aren't just told from the ground. Context, scale, and surroundings. The world looks completely different from above. And the shots that take your breath away are the ones that show where you are, not just what you're doing. That's why I use the AntiGravity A1, the world's first 8K 360 drone incubated by Insta360. At just 249 grams, it's regulation-friendly right out of the box. And with up to 39 minutes of flight time, you can get the shots you need. Slip on the Vision goggles, just 340 grams with a stunning 1-inch micro OLED display, and you're not just flying a drone, you feel like you are actually flying. Full 360-degree immersion in every direction. And it's practically effortless. Free motion mode means you simply point and fly. And with omnidirectional obstacle avoidance, I'm not constantly worried about crashing. But if you do manage to crash, they have a local North American repair center. Deep Track locks onto a subject for epic cinematic storytelling. And with the voice assistant, your hands never have to leave the controls. Use AI Auto Edit, the Adobe Premiere plugin, or the Insta360 Studio app to reframe your 360 footage into a cinematic masterpiece. And now, through July 12th, you can take advantage of Prime Day deals and the biggest discounts to date, up to 25% off. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code, and you can get a free anti-gravity flight battery worth $100 as a gift. You can also get the benefits of 2-year US warranty protection with fast US-based repair service. This is the easiest way to get stunning drone footage. Get yours now before the sale ends. Okay, complaints about paint notwithstanding, this bike rides like a dream. And I don't use that word lightly. I mean it in the literal sense. There are mornings after a canyon session where I genuinely wonder if I hallucinated the whole thing, because nothing should feel this composed and this fun at the same time.
The handling is simply excellent. Neutral steering, great feedback through the handlebars. and an engine that's light enough to make the whole package feel agile without feeling nervous. You can hustle this thing through technical corners, and it just does exactly what you asked. No drama, no surprises, just precision.
And it's not magic. There are actual numbers behind why this bike handles the way it does. Honda set the rake at 25.5 degrees with 101 millimeters of trail and a 1450 millimeter wheelbase. That geometry sits right in the sweet spot for a naked bike. It's sporty enough to turn in willingly when you lean it over, but stable enough to track confidently at speed without ever feeling nervous or darty. It's not a compromise. It's a decision that you feel, and you feel it the very first time you ride it. Now, the front suspension, the 41 millimeter Showa, separate function, big piston forks. These are not adjustable. 0 clickers, no compression, no rebound, no preload. But here's the thing, I don't care.
Because whoever tuned these forks did their homework. They are exceptionally well damped. They're composed over mid-corner bumps in a way that genuinely impressed me, both in the canyons and on the racetrack. And for 90% of riders in 90% of conditions, these forks are more than sufficient. They communicate what the front end is doing, they don't dive aggressively under hard braking, and they don't flutter or get unsettled over imperfect pavement.
If you're in the 10%, if you want to start really pushing the bike hard on track, chasing lap times, the one suspension item that I would upgrade is the rear shock. The factory unit is functional, but it's budget spec, and it's where the bike's performance ceiling starts to show. A quality aftermarket shock, and this bike would become even better. It's probably the single best bang for your buck upgrade you can make to this bike. But the forks, honestly, I'd leave them alone. They're doing just fine. The heart of this thing is a 649cc liquid-cooled inline-four, making around 94 horsepower and revving all the way to 12,000 RPM. And above 6,000 RPM, it's genuinely wonderful, smooth and linear, with a mechanical soundtrack that parallel twins can't even get close to replicating. It's worth pausing on that for a second. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the inline-four was just the default. Every motorcycle was an inline-four. And if you wanted something different, a twin or a triple or even a single, you had to go out of your way to find one. Now it's completely flipped. Parallel twins dominate the segment. The inline-four has become the rare exotic choice. And I don't really understand why, because every time I ride one, I remember exactly what we've been missing. And this engine is a big part of that. Now, I'm going to get slightly technical here for a moment, and I promise it's worth it. There's a flat spot, a hesitation, a slight dead zone in the power delivery, right around 5,000 to 6,000 RPM. And before anyone starts typing angry comments in all caps, yes, I know, and yes, it's fine. Every motorcycle sold in America has this, every single one. Manufacturers deliberately soften fueling and ignition across the mid-range to satisfy EPA noise and emissions compliance. It's not a Honda problem, it's an industry-wide regulatory reality. The CB650's real character lives above that zone. And honestly, after years of riding American market bikes, I've so completely internalized riding through it that I barely notice anymore. And you will too within about a week.
In that same mid-range, roughly 4,000 to 7,000 RPM, you're also going to feel some vibration through the bars, pegs, and seat. And it's real, it's there. And if you're doing sustained highway miles, some people say it gets annoying, but I find it kind of characterful. It's the engine reminding you that it's a 4-cylinder engine. It wants to rev, and that's not wrong.
Now, I spent some time with this bike on track, kind of a lot of time, which I know sounds a little bit silly for what it is. At its core, it's a middleweight, naked street bike, but we're talking about me here. But riding it on track tells you a lot about the bike. And what I learned is this.
The CB650R is not pretending to be something it isn't. It's not a race bike, but it has a race-worthy foundation. The suspension, the geometry is sound, the brakes are strong, and consistent. Lap after lap, the inline-four loves being wrung out. The Showa forks that I said were great on the street they're still great on the track. The rear shock, however, that's that's where you can really start to feel the limits. Mid-corner bumps can unsettle the back of the bike. I think better damping would resolve it. The spring rate seems pretty good. But just put an aftermarket shock on it before you start doing track days, and you can thank me later.
One thing I'd be leaving out if I weren't being honest with you. There was a recall on certain units where the Gearshift arm fasteners would come loose and detach, leaving you unable to shift gears. Now, Honda caught it, they issued a free fix and had no reported injuries. And honestly, the way Honda handled it makes me trust them a little bit more. They found a problem, they fixed it, they changed the process. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work. Recalls shouldn't be looked at as a negative. They should be looked at as a positive because they owned up to it and they fixed it. Now, the brakes themselves deserve a compliment. Dual 310 millimeter floating discs, 4-piston, radial mounted Nissan calipers. Excellent stopping power, excellent modulation. Honda knows how to spec a brake system. But what they've skimped on is the brake lines. Rubber, standard OEM rubber lines, same as essentially every Japanese bike on the market. Now, I used to wonder if there was some sort of legal reason for this because European brands like Triumph and Ducati and Aprilia have been shipping bikes with braided stainless steel lines for years. Turns out there isn't. The federal standard doesn't mandate rubber. It just has performance requirements that both materials can pass. The Japanese manufacturers use rubber because it's cheaper and easier to route around bodywork without scratching anything. That's it. That's about the whole answer. They're fine on a new bike, but they do degrade. Most manufacturer service schedules call for replacing rubber brake lines around the 4-year mark. So when they start feeling soft or squishy, just swap them for stainless braided lines. It's cheap, the improvement in feel is immediately, and you'll wonder why you waited. Now, while we're talking about maintenance, the valve inspection interval, not necessarily the valve adjustment interval, on this engine is 24,000 miles. 24,000. That's impressive because back in my day, most 4-cylinder bikes had you pulling the tank off and digging into the valve train at around 12,000 miles or so. Honda's direct actuated cam design means you can essentially just ride this thing. It's not a high maintenance relationship. The CB650 uses a cable throttle, not ride-by-wire, an actual physical cable connecting your right wrist to the throttle bodies, which means no power modes, right? No rider modes, no rain mode, no sport mode, no I'm feeling contemplative today mode, and no self-canceling turn signals either. You're clicking those off yourself like an animal. And no IMU, which means the ABS and traction control, both of which are standard, are conventional systems rather than lean angle sensitive ones. You get 2-channel ABS and Honda selectable torque control, and they both work well. They're just not reading your lean angle while they do it. You can turn the traction control off though by holding down the button that on every other Honda would be cycling through riding modes. But here it has one job. Kill the traction control, which is a little bit funny when you think about it. Now, there's no cruise control either, though honestly, at 70 miles an hour, this bike is sitting at around 6,000 RPM buzzing away, and it's a problem better solved by finding a better road.
What you do get is direct, immediate mechanical throttle response. When you crack your wrist, it goes. There is no computer in the middle interpreting your intentions. And you know what? This bike is always in sport mode. It's born in sport mode, it'll die in sport mode. There is no other mode. There has never been another mode.
What the bike does have is a 5-inch TFT screen, and I want to take a moment to genuinely thank Honda for giving it an override for dark mode, black background and white text, easy on the eyes, day or night. I really can't stand the white screen searing into my retinas. It's a small thing, it shouldn't be notable, and yet somehow it still is, because so many manufacturers haven't figured this out. So Honda, thank you. Thank you so much for giving us dark mode on the TFT. Now, I see the comments every week. Somebody writes in about how they hate all the technology creeping onto modern motorcycles. The rider aids, the modes, the menus, the screens. Just give me the bike, they say. Well, here you go. Cable actuated throttle. No modes, no self-canceling turn signals, minimal interference. This is the bike you've asked for. Now, the next refresh will almost certainly bring fly-by-wire throttle and power modes and probably self-canceling turn signals too. But if you want the pure, unmediated version of this bike, buy one now. Well, except for one thing.
Because buried inside this deliberately old-school motorcycle is one of the most significant pieces of technology to arrive in motorcycling in a generation. And I say that as someone who just spent several minutes celebrating a cable throttle. The Honda E-Clutch, and before I go any further, I have a full dedicated video on this system. I'm going to link to it down in the description. You can go watch it. But here's what you need to know about this bike right now.
For the uninitiated, the E-Clutch sits right here on the right-hand side of the engine. It's two small electrical motors and a clever three-part shaft that works the clutch for you. The system reads throttle angle, engine RPM, gear position, wheel speed, shift pedal pressure, and it'll operate the clutch automatically. You just use your foot to shift. The clutch lever is still there if you want it, but you don't need it. This is not DCT. The bike does not shift for you. You still choose every gear with your foot. You just don't have to pull the lever to do it unless you want to. And unless you want to is an important distinction. And here's the part that still gets me. The entire system, this whole thing weighs about 4.5 pounds, and it only adds about $100 to the price of the bike. I mean, $100 for what is genuinely a paradigm shift in how a motorcycle operates. And there is no maintenance, there's no fluid, there's no adjustment, nothing to service. And Honda told me directly that even if the unit ever fails or gets damaged somewhere down the road, you can replace this entire thing for around $500. Though I wouldn't lose too much sleep over that. The actuator was developed with Honda's robotics division. I mean, the same people who built the Azimo, that robot that's still doing backflips after 20 years. I think the E-Clutch thing will be just fine. I was at the original press launch when Honda introduced the E-Clutch to the world. The large project leader, the engineer who designed the system, was there. His name is Junya Ono. And he told me something that I'll never forget. He said, of all the journalists who tested the system, I was the only one who had actually understood his vision, what he designed it to do, and how he designed it to work. And I take that as one of the highest compliments I've ever received in motorcycling. So let me tell you what I understood.
The E-Clutch isn't just a convenience feature for beginners. I mean, I think its real party trick is the downshift. I mean, think about a situation. I mean, this will defeat most high-end quick shifters. You come out of a corner in too high of a gear. A quick shifter will lock you out. But E-Clutch, you can leave the throttle wide open and just bang a couple downshifts, and it'll slip the clutch without a violent snap. The E-Clutch executes these kind of heavy-handed downshifts perfectly. And I find that to be just absolutely joyful. It makes it better than most quick shifters out there.
Now, the one caveat is if you're spending a day doing slow speed parking lot exercises, working on your friction zone, U-turns and tight figure eights, a lot of people say they like to turn it off. They go into the menu, switch it into manual mode. They feel like at very slow speeds and slow speed maneuvers, the E-Clutch can get a little bit flustered. And that might be one situation where you want to be in full control of the clutch yourself. Me personally, I just take over with the clutch with my hand anyway, and it seems to work just fine. And then for everything else, canyons, commuting, track days, stop and go traffic, E-Clutch is my favorite system on any motorcycle I've ridden.
And again, the beauty of the E-Clutch is that if I want to go back to using the clutch, it's right there. I'm not locked in like you are with DCT or some of these other systems. If I want to use it as a quick shifter, it's there. If I want to flip the clutch, it's there. I said this during the initial review, but if this was a system that I could bolt onto any motorcycle, I absolutely would. That's how much I like E-Clutch.
And speaking of which, I just got an email from Honda. They're sending me a Hornet 750 with the updated E-Clutch for a long-term review. So if you want to see how the system performs with a fly-by-wire bike on a bike built from the ground up around the E-Clutch, hit like, hit subscribe so you don't miss that one. So the 2026 Honda CB650R. I mean, the specs are everywhere if you want them. But what I want to tell you is what it actually feels like to live with this bike. It's the kind of motorcycle that makes you want to find a reason to ride, not just on weekends and not just on the good roads. I mean, every day you start taking the long way home. You leave earlier than you need to, and you find yourself standing in the garage just looking at it. And it's good looking enough to hold your attention. I've ridden a lot of bikes. I am the luckiest person in the world that I get to do this for a living. But what that means is I'm usually already thinking about the next bike, right? But this one, I keep finding excuses to go back to it. I mean, one more canyon run, one more track session, one more morning jaunt. I mean, I have to send this back to Honda, and I'm already pretty sad about that, which doesn't happen as often as you would think with this job. Now, honestly, I may end up buying one for myself. That's how much I like it. But it's gonna have to be that putty gray. You already know how I feel about this whatever triple black thing. But yeah, this one's special. Thank you so much for our channel supporters and our Patreon members for helping make all of this thing possible. Ride on and ride well.